Welcome to 10-Minute Zuimonki. Dōgen taught, saying, "There is an ancient principle concerning what it means to be an emperor. Unless you first empty your heart, you will not be able to accept the good counsel of others." The meaning of this is that if one does not cling to one's own opinions but instead listens to the advice of one's ministers, one will fulfill the role of emperor as it ought to be fulfilled. The same principle applies to those who wear the patched robe and practice the way. If you remain attached to your own views, the words of the teacher will not enter your ears. And if the teacher's words do not enter your ears, you will never receive the teaching. Moreover, it is not enough merely to set aside your own opinions about the Dharma. You must also turn away from worldly concerns and cease worrying about hunger and cold. Only by listening to the teaching after thoroughly clearing body and mind of all preconceived views can you truly hear it. When you listen in this way, both its meaning and its difficult points will become clear. Likewise, genuine realization of the way means letting go of the body and mind you have carried until now and sincerely following another. In doing so, you become a true person of the way. This is the most important attitude taught by the ancients. Today's passage begins with a piece of advice for emperors. Dōgen quotes an ancient saying, "Unless you first empty your heart, you will not be able to accept the good counsel of others." At first, this seems to have little to do with Buddhist practice, but Dōgen immediately applies it to the way. He says that if an emperor is attached to his own opinions, he will not listen to the advice of his ministers, and if he does not listen, he cannot govern well. The same, Dōgen says, is true for a practitioner. If we cling to our own views, the teacher's words cannot enter our ears. And if the teacher's words cannot enter our ears, we cannot receive the teaching. This is a simple point, yet it touches something very deep. Most of us think that learning means adding something new to what we already know. Dōgen suggests that genuine learning often begins by letting something go. The problem is not that we know too little. The problem is that we are often too full of ourselves, too full of opinions, assumptions, too full of certainty. When we already know what is right, what is true, and what everything means, there is very little room left for anything new to enter. This is why Dōgen speaks of emptying the heart. It is not about becoming passive, not about stopping thinking. Dōgen is asking us to become receptive, to listen before judging, to hear before concluding, to allow the teaching to challenge us rather than immediately measuring it against our existing beliefs. Anyone who has studied Buddhism for a long time has probably experienced this. Sometimes we read a passage and think, "I already know what it means." But then, years later, we encounter the same passage again and suddenly see something we had completely missed. What changed? The words did not change. Our openness changed. Our willingness to listen changed. Our certainty softened. Dōgen then takes this even further. He says that we should not only set aside our opinions about the Dharma, we should also set aside our worries about ordinary life, hunger, cold, comfort, status, all the concerns that constantly occupy our minds. It is because when the mind is crowded with worries and preferences, it cannot truly listen. Imagine trying to hear a quiet voice while a dozen other voices are shouting around you. That is what the mind is often like. The Dharma is being spoken, but our attention is elsewhere. We are thinking about our plans, about our fears, desires, and judgments. And so we hear the words without really hearing them. For Dōgen, genuine listening requires simplicity. Not necessarily a simple life, but a simple mind. A mind that is not constantly arguing with reality. A mind willing to receive what is being offered. Toward the end of the passage, Dōgen says something very powerful. He says that the true realization means letting go of the body and mind you have carried until now and sincerely following another. That phrase may sound uncomfortable to modern ears. After all, we are taught to be independent, to think for ourselves, and to follow our own path. But Dōgen is not talking about blind obedience. Instead, he is pointing to something much more fundamental. The person who comes to practice already carries countless habits, opinions, fears, and assumptions. If we cling to all of them, how can transformation occur? To learn the way, we must be willing to let the way change us, not merely confirm what we already believe. And that requires humility. Humility is not weakness. It is the courage to admit that we may not yet see clearly. Perhaps that is why Dōgen calls this the most important attitude taught by the ancients. Because without it, nothing else can happen. Without openness, the teaching cannot enter. Without receptivity, learning cannot occur. Without humility, transformation remains impossible. So perhaps the question this passage leaves us with is simple. When you listen to the Dharma, to another person, or to life itself, are you truly listening? Or is your mind already full? Dōgen's advice is clear. First empty your heart, then listen. Thank you for listening. Until next time.